Courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode number 447. I am Andrew in our forum, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. With me, as always, is my co-host Derek. He is D43 in our forum and D4384 on Twitter. Derek, good to be talking to you as always. What's new?
I'm happy to be here. So, Andrew, NBA Live 2003, the PC version, you have a work in progress all-time teams roster. Let's talk about it.
Sure. The other night, I was just playing a bit of Live 2003 and thought, you know what? I miss modding this game. I've got a lot of great memories of modding that game. In recent shows, I've talked about how I'm feeling a bit nostalgic for that era with my 20-year high school reunion coming up. So I've been playing a bit of Live 2003 and thought, you know what? I'll see if I can tinker, see if I can make something with the assets on hand, because you know how I love my minimalist modding, Derek. So I threw together some all-time teams with the legends that are already in there and the active players, of course. And it's still very much a rough draft at this point, really. But no, it's in a state where we could fire it up and play with the Lakers and Celtics and have a bit of fun.
It's intriguing. And part of the reason is because we have that avenue of, connecting on Parsec and being able to play, human versus human, or, play co-op, on the same team versus the computer and utilize that roster. Andrew and I actually connected tonight. And we played using a rough draft of the roster. We were using the all-time Celtics on the same team and against the CPU Lakers. And let me tell you something about Live 2003. When you haven't played it for a while, or you don't play it that often, it can be rough on the sticks, because it's missing a lot of the two-player animations and the 10-man freestyle that came in for NBA Live 2004. So, you have a lot of bodies flying, or the ball being jarred loose in situations where it shouldn't be. And it's definitely a lot more arcade leaning than, say, NBA Live 2004. But when you kind of settle into the game and you play it a little bit more, and you get used to frustrating aspects that you need to avoid, like passing it up court without being able to see the, offensive player ahead of you. And then, the ball just goes sailing out of bounds, passing it too early to a guy cutting and he gets caught up on a computer player and the ball goes sailing out of bounds. Like, once you, adjust to the game's mechanics, adjust to the gameplay, the game can be quite fun. And I think the second half of the game we played tonight, after we both kind of adjusted to the game again, was a lot of fun.
I agree. And it really comes down to your expectations, because, as you said, it does lean in that arcade direction. There's a lot of sim bones to it. I mean, it's still got rules. It's still emulating the NBA in a realistic style to an extent, but the gameplay is very arcade-leaning, for sure. And back in the day, as I've said before, I didn't love that. I wanted the game to become more and more realistic. I was really into that at the time. I still like a more realistic style for the 5-on-5 games. I like having that separation between the sim games like a 2K or Live back in the day, obviously, and Jam and Street. So it wasn't what I wanted, and I ended up getting very frustrated with it. But revisiting it now and taking it for what it is and enjoying that style that it's trying to present, I do have a lot more fun with it. And as you said, once we started getting adjusted to the game again, and you had a bit of lag because my connection is what it is, and we're playing over Parsec, but still working quite well, because Parsec is just an incredible app that even with my shoddy connection at times, it actually works incredibly well. You were
crazy that you're even able to host. I mean, you're hosting from Australia.
You were making free throws.
The other side of the world, and I was making some free throws
with a team eater. Yeah,
I had a really nice move actually with Paul Pierce using the freestyle, doing a spin move and then throwing it down in traffic and whatnot. Yeah, I started adjusting really well to the little bit of lag that I had, and I reached out to you, after the game, and I was like, this was actually like a lot of fun. So the fact that you can even host from Australia and give me, who's on the other side of the world, a really good experience on a video game, that's pretty impressive.
Definitely, and I think it also helped that we are doing these all-time rosters here, that it's kind of a fun scenario rather than trying to be a sim situation with real teams, real rosters, as of the 2003 season, which is not to say that you can't play Live 2003 with real rosters and have a blast with it, because we've played with the All-Star teams before. Although, of course, again, that was an All-Star team, not the regular teams. But you can definitely play it that way and have fun. But because we're doing something special, we had the all-time teams that I've put together, this rough draft. We used the retro jerseys as well, so that was kind of made it a bit more like an NBA Jam situation. Actually, both of them were using away jerseys, which does look a bit weird, I know, but it's also kind of that Jam style where both teams have got that the solid color jerseys. So no, I had a blast with it. I want to finish that roster. I don't think it'll take too long to do it, because there's a lot of assets for Live 2003 out there that I'm sure we can give credit for and repurpose. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing something. And as we do these more resources, Derek, to get people onto retro games and help them get old games to run, putting a few new releases out there, I think people will really enjoy that.
Oh, absolutely. I want to say something really quick about the gameplay. From a gameplay perspective, I feel like, for me anyway, NBA Live 2003 has two advantages over NBA Live 2004. One, fast breaks. And the reason is because on NBA Live 2003, instead of the receiver stopping to catch the ball every time, the receiver stays in motion and keeps going towards the hoop and keeps running his route, right? So, like, we had a couple really good fast breaks in today's game, because I would catch the ball and see you, diving to the hoop and whatnot, and I would feed you, and your motion would continue towards the hoop, and you'd be able to throw it down or, put up a layup. In NBA Live 2004, they're just constantly, like, jumping to catch the ball, and then, like, it ruins the flow of your fast break. So that's number one. Number two, the highlights are just better on NBA Live 2003. The dunks are a little bit louder. The dunks are a little bit more, yes, arcade leaning, but super explosive and fun. So I find myself making better, more exciting highlights when I play Live 2003. Outside of those two, I'm not sure Live 2003 really has any other gameplay advantages over Live 2004, but those two stand out for me.
No, that's a fair observation. Although, having said that, are you saying that Larry Bird making a crossover and then skying for a huge reverse dunk isn't sim?
See, the thing is about Larry Bird doing that, I can still do that in NBA 2K23 with Larry Bird. Like, you can still kind of like get by your guy and he'll go up and he'll throw it down hard. Like, not that Larry couldn't dunk. He actually had quite a few decent dunks in his career.
True.
Having baseline and reversing it. I think it was actually on Dr. J. He had that, pass for him. I think it was Gerald Henderson, and he, got up pretty high and threw it down two-handed. He's had a poster dunk. I want to say it was on, like, Caldwell Jones and whatnot. Like, he definitely still had some dunks.
It was 6'9", so I mean, he got up there and dunked, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his vertical didn't need to be very high. But, yeah, I mean, obviously it's overdone in NBA Live 2003, and it's even overdone in, like, NBA 2K23, the newest title.
So we might be sharing some highlights of that. I think you were recording when we were playing. You may hear some...
When do I not record, Andrew?
That's a good point. That's a good point. You may hear some odd sound effects. That is because I forgot I had the NBA Live Street 2003 mod installed, and that changes the sound effects to the urban court to the regular arenas, because when you have that installed, it replaces all the NBA arenas with Rucker Park. So it had chain net sounds, and the sound of the shot clock counting down wasn't there. So we got a few shot clock violations because that audio cue wasn't there, because it's not there in the urban courts. But I think the effect is still there, and it was still a lot of fun to play with those, even a rough draft of those all-time teams. And I just love going back to these old games. I really, I'm grateful to you, Derek, that you've gotten me into revisiting a lot of these games outside of just going back for Way Back Wednesday, bringing them back into the rotation, not just grinding mindlessly in the latest 2K in my career, although I have been playing a bit of my career online in 2K23, but going back and playing these old games and even being inspired to create something new, minimalist or otherwise, it's just been so much fun.
And how awesome is it to be able to share that experience with somebody on the other side of the world? Like I said, I think that that Live 2003, where it really shines, is in that human versus human or co-op element. And I think maybe you missed a little bit of that even back in the day, the opportunity to do that as much. So, when you get this all-time teams roster finished, or if I help you out with it as well to try to get done a little bit faster, and maybe I can help with some faces and whatnot. I think that one of the exciting things is being able to, connect and actually play against each other or on the same team. I want to point something out, and I think this is a very notable point. And I think you're going to see where I'm coming from with this. There's two things that popped out when my brother and I put on NBA 2K23 for Xbox Series X tonight. There's two things that popped out because we put it on right after you and I got done that NBA Live 2003 game. Two things I was able to adjust to immediately. One, right stick dribbling. In NBA 2K23, I'm not going to lie, it actually feels similar in a lot of ways to NBA Live 2003. The way the new dribbling system works, the way, crossovers feel and whatnot, and being able to burst off of your dribble and stuff like that. Like, it was an easy adjustment to go to Live 2003 right stick dribbling to NBA 2K23. And then I noted it, and so did my brother. We were basically like, that's like Live 2003 while we were playing. They have some courtside comedy type cutscenes in NBA 2K23. I don't know if you noticed it, but after a big play happens or something like that, like a big dunk, they go over to a specific part to on the end of the bench. And for us, we were using Legends, and it was like Kareem and Jerry West kind of falling all over each other, laughing about what had just happened.
Yes.
And they
yes.
in a cinematic way. And it's that's like NBA Live 2003, right? No, it's not exactly the same cutscene, but it's the same idea as what they were doing. So it's funny how games separated by 20 years,
literally 20 years,
can be so similar, right? But can be so similar in a control perspective, but then also a presentation perspective. So I thought that was really cool.
That is a cool observation, and obviously the tone of the courtside comedy is particularly comedic. Obviously, it is a bit sillier, but yeah, you do have those cinematic cuts to the bench and the reactions and whatnot, and that was a good idea in Live 2003. It maybe got a bit more silly than some of us wanted, as I've said before, but again, I appreciate that now because I've had those more serious games come after that, give me more of what I wanted out of a sim game, so I can go back to 2003 and enjoy it for what it was. I absolutely agree about being able to connect. That has been the great thing about Parsec over the past 12 months plus. We do need to mic up at some point. We were just doing a quick game tonight, so we didn't get all set up to do that, but we do need to do that. I know that Nate and Roger suggested that in last week's show, that it's something they'd like to hear. A few other people have expressed those sentiments as well, so that is something we will look to do. If we were mic'd up, Derek, we would be joking about how the commentators were talking about how Kobe Bryant was not the player you wanted to have on the line at the end of the game, and then he missed the free throws. It was how prophetic. Wrong, but prophetic in this situation.
He missed 2 of his 3 in a key moment. We only won that game by a few points. And their star was Jerry West, by far,
Mr.
on
Clutch.
the all-time league. Yeah, he had over 30 points in 5-minute quarters and whatnot, and he was just hitting guarded threes and, getting to the hoop and whatnot. But, yeah, the commentary can have its issues in NBA Live 2003 with stuff like that. But, it's no different than NBA 2K23 and its commentary blunders where you get a completely wide open dunk with somebody. Let's just say it's like Anthony Edwards, and say, I don't know, LeBron is trailing the play and he's 5 feet behind Anthony Edwards. Kevin Harlan screams out that, and Anthony Edwards dunks all over LeBron James. And it's no, he didn't.
No.
It's 5 feet behind him. And whatnot. So commentary blunders are pretty normal. You know what's really funny, though? If you actually play NBA Live 15, NBA Live 16, and you listen to Jeff Van Gundy and Mike Breen, they are really, really solid on the mic. And I can't really pinpoint any mistakes that they make throughout, when they comment on games and whatnot. I don't know if you remember how solid that commentary is, but it is definitely one of the strong points, in my opinion, presentation-wise, for Live 15 and Live 16.
No, I'd agree with that too. That there's not, but I suppose if there was anything that people were criticizing about the commentary in 15 and 16, it was that it was a little dry compared to 2K15, 2K16. So I guess there's a lot of dead air, I suppose. But if that wasn't necessarily unrealistic, if you do watch a broadcast with them, there are those moments of dead air. But sometimes with 2K, it can be too much, filling in that dead air with the same anecdote over and over again. Over an 82-game season gets very repetitive.
I'd rather have dead air than listen to Chris Webber and Doris Burke talk as much as they do.
There you go.
During the NBA 2K broadcasts over the last few years. They drive me absolutely nuts. You want to know who my favorite guest commentator is on the newer 2Ks? Steve Smith.
Steve Smith, yeah.
Steve Smith, open, honest, realistic, nothing agenda-driven with what he's talking about. Like, you feel like Steve Smith is like always keeping it real. I really enjoy listening to Steve Smith.
Well, I knew it wouldn't be Bill Simmons.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's definitely not Bill Simmons. I'd say that Doris Burke and Bill Simmons are the ones who really bug me the most with 2K commentary. I'd say Chris Webber is not bad all the time, but he definitely rambles a little bit too much.
And I don't think you're a big fan of the Grant Hill booth either.
No, neither are you.
No.
Yeah, get Brian Anderson and Grant Hill. I appreciate them being in the game. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the effort by 2K to try to give like a fresh new look at a new commentary crew. But Grant Hill talks to us kind of like we're like small children. Like that's how he's talking to the audience. He kind of dumbs down the commentary. And Brian Anderson, while good in real life, just kind of comes off as a tryhard, I guess you could say, and a little bit fake. So like I try to skip Brian Anderson and Grant Hill. Like I'll quit a game and go back into a new game just to get Harland.
Well, of course, now you can do that without wasting a contract in my team. So it's there's no penalty to restart games. So that's a lot better in my team this year. Again, removing contracts was such a small thing on the surface, but such a huge improvement to my team. But, we're making these assessments of video games, Derek, whether they be Live 2003 or Live 06 or NBA 2K14, NBA 2K23, the new one, of course. I do have a concern here, though. Do we have a big enough follower count to have an opinion on these games?
I just want to point something out. Just because somebody has a low follower count doesn't mean that they're automatically a troll, doesn't make them a loser, doesn't even make them unpopular. We're talking about social media here, right? And there's a lot of context that goes into that. I'm seeing more and more takes from people saying, well, you have a low follower account, you're irrelevant. Or you have a low follower account, you don't matter. Your point doesn't matter because you have a low follower account. Now, they're not saying that to me. I'm seeing these conversations happen on Twitter. And it's like, first off, get off your high horse. And second off, be a human being and think before you speak.
I use the word toxicity a lot. I'm trying to avoid it. I'm trying to branch out my adjectives, whether it's on the podcast or in my writing. I think it behooves me to do that. But there is something very toxic, very arrogant and elitist, and just rude, and not to mention wrong, about dismissing someone's opinion just because they have a smaller follower count than you do. And like you said, it hasn't been directed at us, me, or the NLSC account, but we have seen it directed at other people who do have a bit of a following. And let's break this down a little bit. If you're saying that, because nobody starts out hugely popular, right? You need to build that audience. Are you saying that you didn't... The people that are making these arguments, when I say you, are they saying that their opinions didn't matter until they got a following? Or that somehow when they built up their following, their opinions suddenly mattered? Like, they're not even looking at their own perspective, that they started out from zero and had to build up their following. And obviously, they valued their own opinions when they had 10 followers, 15 followers, whatever. It's just so ridiculous, and an appeal to popularity. It's fallacious. There you go, another adjective. It's fallacious to say that these people's who don't have a huge social media following, people who are just on there, just mostly following accounts and interacting with them rather than creating content, so you don't have a huge following, absolutely fine. That if they don't have hundreds, thousands of followers, that somehow their opinion doesn't matter. It's an ad hominem. It's not focusing on the meat of their argument, of their criticism. And it just goes to show the way the attitude that is permeates the whole influencer movement at the moment, and it's kind of gross.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of content creators kind of talk like that now.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate. I just want to point something out, and this is reality. Some of the biggest scumbags and tools that you could ever meet in your life have huge social media followings. And then some of the nicest people ever, knowledgeable people, have very low follower counts. So that just puts it into perspective, right? So just always remember that when you're trying to dismiss somebody with a low follower count, that the following has really very little to do or nothing to do with the quality of that person's point, the quality of that person, etc. So unfortunately, though, this is getting, we're not going to name who recently, a pretty big influencer in the video game community.
And there's a few of them as well as that particular person,
Yeah. But the one that we're pointing out is a pretty big influencer and has been a big influencer in the gaming community for over a decade and whatnot. The thing is, it's becoming way more common today because it's the height of social media, right? It's the height of Instagram, the height of now TikTok, the height of YouTube, the height of Facebook, all of that stuff. So a lot of people are getting a pretty big head when they get that big following, and they need to take a step back and think big picture and think about reality before they speak. And a lot of times they don't.
Well, it's the arrogance to assume that only their opinion matters, right?
Right, exactly. I think that unfortunately a lot of people back those comments too, and I think you see that a lot of people like those tweets. A lot of people are like, yeah, man, those low follower accounts, they're always trolls, or they think they're big, you know what, and they're not. Like that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of support for it.
And the funny thing is, the support is coming from people who have low follower accounts too, but they're just following that popular influencer.
Right, exactly.
But I think the moral of the story here, Derek, is that as long as you have a well-reasoned and well-stated opinion, is that we're all entitled to our opinion, and we should value opinions that are well-reasoned, criticism that is well-founded, etc. And you know whose critique I really value, Derek?
Who?
The people who leave wonderful reviews for us on Apple Podcasts and other platforms. No, but How
awesome are our listeners?
Absolutely.
How awesome are our listeners? They're absolutely amazing.
No, we love the interaction we've been having. We love the feedback and the kind words. A little behind on acknowledging these, but we've had a couple of really nice reviews come through on Apple Podcasts. I'm not going to read them out in full. Feel a bit egotistical doing that, but got some positive reviews. 5 stars. Thank you so much for that. From Lost Santhon, saying, for real basketball gamers, this is a great podcast for this old head basketball gamer. So we definitely relate to you there, sir. And just goes on to pump up the podcast and say how much they enjoy it if you're a real basketball fan and gamer. And great job, guys. Keep at it, and we certainly will. Thank you.
No, it helps motivate us to keep doing this every week. We love doing it anyway, and we'd probably be putting on the show regardless. But it definitely puts a smile on our faces, and it definitely keeps us going. And the fact that we can make people's days a little bit better, and even like one of the reviewers stated, it's gotten them to go back and buy some of the games that we've talked about, right, that we've pumped up on the show and said, hey, I think our listeners should give this a try. So the fact that we can impact people in that way, I think it's great, and I love having this platform to do so.
Definitely. And that reviewer that you referred to there, Brandon C12, shout out to you as well. Retro Basketball Gaming Talk at its finest, talking about being a new dad and listening to us on his commute and when he has some spare time, and enjoying how we talk about the retro games and the current day as well. And found off a recommendation of a YouTuber, so shout out to that YouTuber. Doesn't mention who, but thank you for that recommendation. And yes, he mentions that picking up some of the retro games we've been talking about. So Brandon, let us know which games you've picked up and how you're enjoying them, and that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, we love the follow-ups, right? Like, let us know if you get the chance. Comment on the YouTube video. if you get the chance, for the next episode, and let us know what games you picked up, what you're playing, what you're enjoying, all of that stuff, because we love to hear it.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, nba-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. So, Derek, we talked about a 20-year-old game, but of course, 2K23, the newest game, we are both playing that as well. What have you been up to in that one?
A lot of my team and a lot of my NBA legends with my brother. I finished off the Southeast Division for my team and picked up a couple new cards. I got a 91 overall Wilt Chamberlain, added some badges to him. He's up to 92. I have a 92 overall Jerry West that I picked up. And, so Wilt Chamberlain has now moved the 85 overall Shaq to the bench. I'm going to start Reggie Lewis next game. He was coming off the bench before. So right now, my team domination starting lineup is Jerry West, Michael Jordan, Reggie Lewis, Xavier McDaniel, and Wilt Chamberlain. And I think that's pretty damn strong. So I'm going to have some fun. I changed my team branding from, how I had Seattle Supersonics
yes.
for the whole last challenges. I moved over to the branding of the Phoenix Suns of like 1983-84. Because I love those jerseys. It makes me think of, high-flying Larry Nance Sr.
Of course, yeah.
The jerseys he competed with in the dunk contest and whatnot. And I was able to get that Suns floor, all of that. Love that branding. So for the next division that I go into, it's going to be all of that Phoenix Suns branding. And, of course, like I did for the last challenges, I'll be uploading highlight videos for each one of the teams that I face in all three difficulty levels. So outside of that, my brother and I are 25 games now into our My NBA. And of course, this is us playing co-op locally using legends. So starting lineup, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Magic Johnson. And then on the bench, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Julius Erving, Kobe Bryant, and Clyde Drexler. Super explosive backcourt and whatnot. And we're just having fun. We're playing on Hall of Fame, but obviously we're beating the computer in blowouts every game because we're using legends. But it's just fun to make highlights and have stat goals and do all of that stuff. It's just loose, clean fun, right? Like we used to have with video games and whatnot. And that's the great thing about 2K is they give you these, all of this depth. So you can find something that you'll enjoy as long as the gameplay is decent between the lines. So yeah, my team, my NBA, and I've already gotten my money's worth, and we're not even through October. So I'm happy about that.
I'm feeling very, very much the same, actually. As I've said on previous shows, really enjoying 2K23. Been playing. I was going to start in my NBA, but I was going to leave that until the rosters come through. A bit around about opening the season is a week away, right? So that's coming through soon. I know there's a lot of people working on the My NBA Eras rosters as well. Might download one of those. I know MJ Wizards is putting in a ton of work on that, so that's really great to see. I too have been playing my team. I'm not making as good a use of my jersey collection as you are. I just stick with the Bulls branding all the way through. So you're changing it up. I like that.
You know what I love, though, is you are a true diehard Bulls fan. And you know how I know? Because you submitted a whole bunch of NBA Live 15 Ultimate Team highlights. And what are you wearing in Ultimate Team for that game? Bulls branding.
Of course.
Bulls jerseys. You got your Bulls floor, all of that stuff. So it's pretty clear that you are a diehard Bulls fan and that you always will be.
Definitely. And I've talked to, shout out to Dime Dropper pod on Twitter. A younger fellow than us, but really appreciates the history of the game. Great basketball mind, and he's a Clippers fan. And that to be a loyal Clippers fan, even over the last decade where they've been much better than they were when we were growing up, Derek, it's still a lot of loyalty, especially in a city where you can there's a much more popular team, right? The Lakers, that everyone loves to bandwagon every so often, especially when they're winning a lot. As a Bulls fan, I'm able to reflect on some really good times, as you can imagine, back in the 90s, growing up in the 90s and beholding the Jordan era as I did. That's not to say that I don't get frustrated with the team, and especially in recent years before they really started to turn it around. But I can be a diehard fan because I had that very special experience growing up with the Bulls. I've seen the top. It kind of gets me through some of the rough times. But yeah, I'm absolutely a diehard Bulls fan. So I always do have to have that brand. Either that or I'll do an NLSC jersey sometimes as well. Although I'm doing that now that I'm playing Pro-Am again with the guys, 3v3 Pro-Am. That's where I have the NLSC jerseys. But how good is having that customization in those modes?
No, it's just amazing. And I want to get back to that in a second. But, you talk about like the team's struggles and, the struggling years and whatnot. I've talked about this before on Twitter and I think on this podcast maybe 100 episodes ago. But, I was such a diehard Boston Celtics fan growing up. Never missed a game. Glued to my TV. Losing seasons, winning seasons, it didn't matter. But, some of the losing seasons were my favorite to watch. Even the 15 and 67 season in 96-97, just watching them fight, rooting for David Wesley, rooting for, rookie Antoine Walker, rooting for Brett Szabo. They bring in this guy who nobody had heard of before, right? And they throw him in the starting lineup. And he's got goggles, kind of a goofy looking guy. And he'll get a tip dunk during a game and we would flip out in front of the TV. It's like, look what Szabo just did. It had a lot of meaning to it. You know what I mean? So it was so easy to cheer for that team, even though they were struggling and losing so many games, rooting for Dana Barros to, be healthy and perform. And, my favorite player was on the team, D Brown and whatnot. And, watching him play, even in a losing effort. So some of those struggling seasons, where the team was losing, I honestly I have even more fond memories than some of the winning seasons. So even when Ricky Davis was on the Celtics years later, you know what I mean? Like those teams with Pierce and Ricky Davis, and then the short stint for Yuri Welch and whatnot on the Celtics. I don't know. There's something about rooting for a team to overcome adversity. I really enjoyed that.
Well, like I said, I'm able to weather the bad times because I had the really good times as a Bulls fan in the 90s. That has definitely helped. But I think there's something special about it being your team and staying loyal to a team. And, there's a lot of people, I think, they don't want to be associated with a losing team. They don't want to be a fan of a losing team because they're going to be made fun of. But personally, I respect somebody who will stick with their team, and because that team drew them in and they still believe in that team and enjoy that team, than somebody who just bounces around from team to team and pretends to be the diehard fan of this team for a whole 12 months until their favorite player gets traded somewhere else or signs elsewhere. I don't like gatekeeping or elitism, as you know, and as I've told our listeners many times, Derek. But at the same time, if you come in there as a Johnny-come-lately fan and pretend to be a diehard, the other fans that have been watching for 20, 30, 40 years are going to give you the side eye, and understandably so, because you're celebrating this history that you've not been a part of and pretending, oh yeah, I've been flying these colors, flying this flag for years, and you just came over because in the last 12 months. It's there is something special about sticking with a team, and as you say, going for that underdog and sticking with them through these struggles. And when they do get on top again, when the Celtics did make it back and won that 2008 title, I'm sure that was so special for you.
Yeah, it was amazing. And by the way, the diehards will recognize the phonies immediately.
Yeah,
because they're diehards, right?
Real recognizes real. Yeah,
right, exactly. But I wanted to bring this up too before we get to the mailbag segment. How great would it be? We were talking about my team earlier. How great would it be to be able to put my team in NBA Live 2003?
Oh,
or, for Live 2003, it would be Ultimate Team. because that's what, EA Sports does, but be able to get like, your rubies and your emerald cards and all of this stuff, but it be from that era. Like, how cool would it be to get like a juiced up, high flying, monster dunking Stromile Swift, like in a pack on Live 2003? And how awesome would that be to try to like take the floor with that, Stromile Swift? And it'd be awesome with Live 2004 as well, or even a game like NBA Live 2000. I think about that sometimes with some of the new modes and some of the innovations that they've made over the last decade and whatnot with the newer 2Ks, and then, even some of the stuff that they were doing, from a presentation standpoint with like NBA Live and everything. Just being able to put that functionality into some of those older games, it would be an absolute blast.
I've thought about that. I've thought about ways we could possibly replicate the My Team experience in an older NBA Live or Ultimate Team, as the case may be, a card collecting mode, where that you could put together custom teams in custom rosters that have different challenges, whether you could have kind of your own team that's pre-branded as a fictional team that you can try and get players from. How you'd police it would be up to yourself, basically. So it wouldn't be quite the authentic card collecting experience, but there's got to be a way with custom rosters that you could kind of simulate the gameplay experience of that. Now, that's something that I've thought about having in roster mods for older games, how we could do that. Now, I think you could put together a custom team like that and use playoff mode or whatever to simulate some kind of challenge. I think it could be done.
Yeah, I think it could be done with a lot of effort and creativity.
You need to imagine
and whatnot.
You need imagination as well for it, and that's
imagination, being able to be creative, and then obviously time and effort. But I think that another cool feature that would have been great for those old games is, like they do with my NBA and my league, where you can go in and create jerseys, create courts,
of course,
all of that stuff. How cool would it be to be able to do that in NBA Live 2003, and then create all the jerseys and all the courts for a different season, and then share that with the community and whatnot. It'd be a feature that people would still be using today. I guarantee it. All these years later, people would still be using that feature on NBA Live 2003 or Live 2004 or whatever past game it was implemented in. So yeah, I think about that stuff sometimes, and it is a shame that we can't just bring some of those features over.
It is. But if you are passionate enough with your retro gaming, and these are some other areas, I mean, we've been talking about it for a while. I know I need to get off my backside and make some of these tutorials I've been talking about. But as we get people into these old games, and as we look to make some mods for them, also giving them some resources to set up these fun scenarios, it could be done. And I think that'd be a great project for the community. I mean, we're going to be covering 2K23 and future releases, obviously. But as we cover these old games, some new mods, getting the game to work guides, those kind of tutorials, but also some resources for having for changing things up and ideas for NBA Live 10 fantasy teams. I put out that article for Wayback Wednesday, retro teams that you can create with the rosters, with the players that are in the rosters by default. So sometimes in a minimalist kind of way. So there's a lot of stuff we can suggest to people to really spice up some retro gaming for them.
Yeah. I mean, there's still so much you can do with these classic games. And there's still, thousands of hours of fun. I'm such a big advocate for retro gaming, as are you. There's just so many benefits to it. And some of that we talked about with Nate and Roger on last week's show, the NBA Live 2001 Legends. And how great were they? How awesome was it to have them on for a second time?
Oh, for sure. And can I also give the guys a shout out on Twitter? I posted that Darius Miles clip just going up for a dunk. I was just playing around. I was actually getting a clip of Keith Kloss, because Keith Kloss happened to reply to a tweet that I was tagged in, so I wanted to post that. But I also got the Darius Miles video and tweeted that out. And they picked it. Roger picked it right off the bat that I was on starter difficulty, just because I was doing it to get highlights. I turned it down because it wasn't about the challenge, it was about getting a cool highlight. But yeah, Nate says, "What do you reckon, Roger? What do you think it's on rookie or starter?" So Roger says starter, and yeah, man, you picked it. So that's how much they know that game.
Yeah, I admire their dedication to that game, and just the early 2000s lives in general. As you notice, they kind of gravitate to those games. Those games speak to them, And I encourage our listeners out there to find the games that speak to you. It doesn't, you don't feel like you have to play the most recent game. Don't feel like you have to play only games on a certain console. Don't feel like you have to play, just 2K or just NBA Live and stuff. Find the games that speak to you. A lot of these classic games are super cheap to pick up and try, and whatnot. For example, I think I mentioned it on a previous episode of the NLSC podcast. When I picked up NBA 2K14 for PS4, again, years later at GameStop, I got it for like $2.99.
There you go. Cheapest chips.
That's $3 for how many seasons did you play in my career? You're on my career season number 5.
Yes.
On NBA 2K14 for PS4. I got that game for $3, right? Like, pick up some of these games and find the games that speak to you, and you'll be surprised at how much fun you can have with them.
Definitely. I mean, I've been playing 2K23, my team. I will get into some my NBA later on. I've been playing some 3v3 with the guys, 3v3 Pro-Am. Had a great session this weekend, one of our best sessions so far. We had some teammates who really knew ball. They were playing basketball, not video games. Had a couple of rough games, but even some of the losses we had, most of the losses we had, except for the one where we faced some really OP my players, we were in it to the end. It was very competitive. It was exciting. So that is fun. It is a long grind. However, I'm taking it easy. I've got my player to the point where it's viable to play with online. I don't care about hitting 99 overall. I don't care about getting the Hall of Fame in my career, in the NBA side of my career this year. I'm pretty much playing through the story just to be able to comment on it or make fun of it, as the case may be. So I'm just taking it as it comes, enjoying playing the game. But because I'm not grinding that hard, Derek, because I'm playing my team in my career, yes, they are grindy modes, or certainly can be, but I'm just playing what I enjoy, not worrying about if I get the season rewards or not, and just having fun with them. I can go and play these other games. I have time in my gaming rotation to play these other games, and going back to them, whether it's Live 2003, 2K14, I have put aside for the moment because I really get into that. But other games, just revisit on a whim here and there. So much fun.
Again, night and day different from when you and I first started doing this podcast together and really talking.
I was in a rut.
You were in a giant rut. We talked about it off air and on air, and you were grinding. You were sad about it. You felt guilty about grinding because you were like, man, I'm like kind of doing what they want me to be doing, right?
Exactly.
Spending all of these hours on the game and whatnot. And I felt, you felt like you fell into the trap. You weren't playing your, the classic games as much as you are now and whatnot. And I think it's just been amazing for you.
I lost sight of what was important, which is to have fun with the games. What's what games are supposed to be, fun.
Right, exactly. And I'm glad that I never got into that my career scene. I'm glad that I never got into even just the overall online playing scene, like the single player use the park and rec and stuff. And I know you're having fun with NLSC Thrill this year, which is the first time since NBA 2K17. But overall, I'm glad that I stuck with what I enjoy and, what my brothers and I have fun with and everything. And the beauty is now lately, obviously, over the last year and a half and whatnot, I've also been able to enjoy, those experiences with people over Parsec.
Exactly.
And whatnot. So it's been, let's put it this way. I think the last year and a half have been just, it's been great gaming experiences for both of us. And I love it.
It is, and it hasn't relied on the latest game providing us everything we want out of basketball gaming as well, right? We were able to pick and choose as well. You've had a lot more fun with 2K22 than I did. I've been enjoying 2K23, but we do have all those other games. We do have such huge collections that we've amassed over the years, and being such enthusiastic collectors as we are, that we're able to go back and play these games and try out new games, and hell, even trying something ridiculous, to bring it up again, kid sports basketball. That is a ridiculous game. It's not part of the rotation, but just to throw that on and play that together over Parsec and laugh at it and make fun of it is a blast. And that's what it's about. It's about having fun with games, whether I'm playing them solo. It's about playing something that I'm enjoying and not just feel like I'm working and grinding. that I'm actually enjoying this virtual basketball experience, or connecting with other people, whether it's the guys from NLSC Thrillho or with you, either playing something solo that's very satisfying for whatever you want out of basketball gaming, like when we're talking about franchise modes, playing with the Bulls and leading them back to glory, for example, or having those multiplayer experiences or co-op experiences with you and the guys, then it's a lot more fun, obviously, than working. And whenever people say, do you not want to put in the work to grind up a player? You just want to be 99 in the first week. Don't you want to work? I was like, no, I don't want to work. I want to play. I want a challenge, for sure, because that's part of the competitive nature of a basketball video game. But I want to enjoy. I want to compete and have fun doing so, but I don't want to work. This is not supposed to be a job. It's also not supposed to be a financial investment. So, yeah, I've put that aside. I play it the way I'm having fun with it, not grinding hard, just getting the player to a point. I had to get the pre-order bonus VC to do it, the Jordan Edition VC to upgrade initially, which is not ideal, but I wanted the Jordan Edition, so it's there to use. So I'm just doing what is fun, and it sounds so simple, but it's so easy to lose sight of that, because modern games, they want you to lose sight of that. They want you to work and grind and pay. So I'm avoiding all of that, and it's just been great.
Reminder that when you put on a terrible overall basketball video game like Kid Sports Basketball, and you're laughing and smiling while you're playing it because it's just so silly and goofy and whatnot, and that you're still having more fun doing that than grinding, because there's no smiling. There's no, on the newer 2Ks, there's no smiling during that. There's no laughing during that. That's you jumping on the game with a look of dread on your face, saying that, I have to do this.
What's on the agenda? Yeah.
To get to the point of having fun.
Yeah.
With this game. And I have to do this for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. So, we had fun with Kid Sports Basketball because of the Ginger Clay thing, clearly, but also for the fact that, we were able to laugh and, make kind of like take jabs at the game and make fun of the game while we played it as well. And that was a lot of fun, to be honest with you.
Do you think we can get Ginger Clay in my team?
He'd have to be 99 or
ruins the balance, though, doesn't it?
Off the bat. Yeah, he'd have to be full badges, 99
Hall of Fame badges.
Oh, I forgot. I got to talk about this really quick. So I'm going to have to share the screenshot on Twitter. Went onto my team on NBA 2K23. And you know how when you go into the main screen, it will say, the card that sold for the most for that week?
Oh, yes.
It will say my team points. 76 overall, Kevin Willis. 1,700,000 my team points.
Yeah.
I wonder if somebody accidentally thought they were buying another card and they spent that many my team points on Kevin Willis.
You know what that is? Because that's a very common card that a lot of people are getting doubles of. I think I've got about 2 or 3 doubles alone after the initial. I
have too. I've gotten many, yeah.
No, what that is the MT, the my team points resellers you buy the MT that they've been grinding for, and they just say put up any card on the auction house for what amount of points, and they'll just give you the money they'll give the MT that way that you've bought. So they buy any random card for that amount of MT. So it's the MT resellers. It has to be.
That's ridiculous.
It is. It's ruined the economy in my team. Yeah, it really has.
I don't even know what to say about that. I thought it might be
it's horrible.
Yeah. I thought it might be a mistake where somebody accidentally thought they picked another card, because I could see somebody doing that, by the way.
Oh, sure. I mean, I could be wrong, but I do know that is how the MT resellers work. That you go to these sites and you pay for the MT that they're able to give out because they've been grinding for it or whatever, or hacking possibly, and they just say just put up a card, let us know what card you put up, and then they do it for that price, and that's how they deal with your MT. Yeah.
That's wild. I do want to say, though, that Kevin Willis was an outstanding player. You know that. And he should be better overall, even for the lowest value of his card. So I think he's incredibly underdone in the video game, as are a lot of the past players. But, yeah, he's definitely not worth 1,700,000 my team points.
Now, Ginger Clay, on the other hand.
Yeah, oh no, I'd pay 2 million for him. But the thing is, um, how do you bring Ginger Clay to life? So you could mod him, I guess, make a redheaded player with glasses and whatnot. And I bet you know what? I bet I could make a pretty good Ginger Clay in the newer 2Ks modding using Blender and whatnot.
You reckon if I get you the screenshots, you can make a Terry Hansen?
Oh yeah, I could definitely make Terry. Do you want me to try?
Yeah, I think I think it's pretty much just a case of smushing LeBron James' face because he's kind of like a LeBron lookalike. So
Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Let's like put that as a project on me because I wanted to do some modding anyway.
Yeah.
For 2K23. Why don't you send me a screenshot of Terry Hansen, and I will see if I can make a good high quality Terry Hansen cyberface for the newest NBA 2K, and then we can post it on social media.
Well, if I've got to fire up my 2K14 my career, I guess I'll reluctantly do so. But no,
You'll end up playing a couple games.
I probably will. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll do that. That'll be cool because I want to put him in other rosters. I want to do some because that's the kind of thing we do, like silly rosters and wacky rosters that we can do. We can put a Terry Hansen in a live 2003, a Ginger Clay. You know what? I want to do this now. Let's find a way to do this with a game.
Do me a favor with the screenshot too. Like make sure that it's like straight on. He has no expression on his face and that it's the highest quality you possibly can, because then I can texture paint and I can try to make it look just like him. So I think I've gotten good enough at faces where I could make a really good Terry Hansen.
Excellent. Let's do it. So I guess stay tuned for some of those crazy projects we'd love to do. We've always talking about the projects we'd like to do. So many ideas, Derek, modding ideas that just come to your mind, and if only we had the time, right?
Endless possibilities with the PC versions of older NBA Live games or older NBA 2K and newer 2K games and whatnot. So many different things you can do. And obviously, the NLSC, as you know, has the best modding community. So, yeah, I'm always impressed with the work that they're doing.
And of course, if you are part of our modding community, we thank you for being a part of it. Please feel free to use our upload facilities to store your work and to share it with the world, and of course all the resources we have in the forum. We love having that as part of our community. Everything we do at the NLSC, but that brings to mind, Derek, community participation, and that also brings to mind the mailbag. So let us indeed open up the mailbag.
To the mailman. The pump fake. What an unbelievable dunk!
So as you always do, Derek, you threw out the question this week for the mailbag. What customization features would you like to see added or improved in future versions of NBA 2K? And a follow-up question, if NBA Live comes back, what customization features would you like to see present in that game? And first up we have Popcorn Jones 77. This definitely has niche appeal over mass market, but I'd like to be able to toggle the three-point line on or off in my NBA League rules so I could do a more legit pre-1979 NBA season. And I 100% agree.
We've talked about that before. You know, it's crazy going back to some of the 2000s NBA Live games for PlayStation 2 and whatnot. And you play with those all-decade teams from the 70s and 60s and 50s and whatnot. And what do you got? You got no three-point line, right? But how cool would it be as a roster maker in the newer games with all the roster editing and creating options that, you know, that you could like turn off the 3-point line and make those, you know, classic seasons really, you know, come to life for those eras that didn't have a 3-point line. So 100% agree with that. I think that'd be a great option.
And I'll take this a step further, that I'd like to be able to customize even the basic rules in the options, which we haven't been able to do for years in 2K. Go into the options, you can't change a lot of the rules for an exhibition game that you used to be able to change. Or if you can, I cannot find those options. So I'd love to be able to do that. But being able to change any of those rules and like an expanded set of rules outside of my NBA, 100%. It seems like a lot of the customization features have gone, they're simply contained to modes. And I'd love to have them for exhibition games as well, or there as default settings to start a new season. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I see what he says by saying like it might be niche and whatnot. But, you know, one of the things that happened with a recent version of NBA 2K, and I think you remember this, there was an article written on Operation Sports about it. Somebody created a league, like a downloadable My NBA, that was, I want to say, like late 40s, with custom jerseys, custom courts for the season and all of that stuff. And they created a bunch of players using the create a player feature and whatnot. There's still demand for that type of retro content. That article got commented on by a lot of different people. A lot of people viewed it, and you do see a lot of classic rosters out there. So I don't think that. I think let's put it this way. I think there's an audience for it,
and it's already in the game. So it's not a matter of adding something that's not in the game. So it's just bringing it and making it more readily accessible to everybody. So even if it is kind of niche, it's not like you're having to put in all this work for something that's niche that isn't already there in the game. So I think it's
right, exactly.
definitely viable. Next up, we have the B-Ball Pundit, being able to create an arena, not just pick one of the choices. You got adding suites to increase ticket sales in my GM. Well, let me actually see it applied. Say it's lofty, but we're on Xbox Series X and PS5. Should be more in-depth when creating an arena. Yeah, again, that deep customization that is kind of there already, but could go even further.
Yeah, somebody else mentioned something that I've talked about on so many different episodes and that I've been talking about for years, actually, is since it was first implemented in NBA 2K16. Why have the custom arena, custom jersey creation, all of that stuff, custom floor creation, all of that just tied into my league or my NBA? Bring that into, the regular roster making in the default game and allow people to build and share those rosters and creations outside of, my NBA or my league. I mean, how cool would that be to just go on to, say, 2K Share, and somebody creates, say, like an 07-08 roster and whatnot, and they were able to like create all the jerseys, all the courts, do all of the customizations, all of that stuff, and then you were just able to, boom, download that roster offline and use it in like Play Now, right? So like outside of my NBA, outside of my league, you can use that roster and say Play Now. And then maybe you can use it when you do like online games with other people and whatnot. I feel like that those creation tools and everything shouldn't just be tied to my NBA and my league.
See, what you're doing there is you're basically replicating what we were doing with PC modding for years and making that a default inbuilt feature, which I think is in many ways the future of modding, especially on consoles, that you have these functions in the game and that if you can take them out, as you say, and make them for a Play Now roster, and you can reassign jerseys or redesign the jerseys or change default jerseys assignments so that, for example, the Cavs 2007 jersey is in the game. So you could make a 2007 season roster and use the jerseys that are already in the game, but switch them so they are the primary jerseys, for example. That kind of customization that you could just, if you want it. I mean, again, it's kind of niche, to go back to Popcorn Joe's point, but I think it would find an audience. And
I don't think that's as niche, though. I think that we have hundreds of thousands of people that like to work on rosters, right? And look how many downloads they get, right?
No,
look at the
true.
downloads for all of these rosters.
Yeah, it might be more popular than we think. Absolutely. To that point, King J Mace, create a team as a standard feature, not just exclusive to my league or my team. A share feature for custom shoes. Give creative players tattoos like we get on next gen. So going back to the current gen features there as well, or prior gen if you wish. Again, having those customization features outside of the modes, having them in that default roster editing as we did way back in the day. They were doing this in the late 90s, early 2000s, so we know it's viable, technically speaking, and could be so much better these days. So that would just enhance custom rosters so much.
Right. Give people the ability to change team names, right? And a roster editor, like stuff that we can do with in Cheat Engine, or with tools for like PC modding and whatnot, but allow people to add teams to a roster, assign jerseys they make to that team, or assign jerseys that are already existing in the game. Name that team, relocate that team. You would see some amazing rosters and a lot of creativity from the super talented, roster making community. So yeah, a lot of opportunity still.
On a slightly different note, Captain Crunch to number Z, Would love to see the backboard glass shattering, the rim ripping, or bring down the entire backboard structure on power dunks and alley-oops. Multiple animations on the glass breaks, and shares a video to give some examples. I am kind of surprised that we haven't had that backboard shattering in a sim game for a long time. We were trying to hook up and play Coach K basketball before we were recording today, and my connection was playing up at the time. But yeah, it'd be really cool to see we've seen it in arcade games, of course, and really old sim games with the backboard breaking, the glass flying everywhere. But to see that in a 4K game, in the next gen games we have, in all their high def glory, that'd be really cool.
Captain Crunch is his name. I badly want a bowl of cereal right now. I'm not gonna lie, I love Captain Crunch. It's one of the best cereals in my opinion. We'll have to talk about our favorite cereals on another episode. I know yours is probably Wheaties, Breakfast of Champions.
Oh, of course, yes. Actually not, but still. Cocoa Pops for the win. Cocoa Pops for the win.
Yeah, Wheaties isn't the best. I was going to say you have bad taste. The cereal doesn't taste that good. No, Coach K college basketball, you had the ability to break the backboard, and that is technically a sim title, right? That's Coach K college basketball is the college version, basically, of NBA Live '96. Came out around, roughly the same time. Some people actually reviewed it better than NBA Live '96 because it did come out a little bit later, and the gameplay and presentation was super strong in that game. But obviously you can, break the backboard in NBA Jam on Fire edition, like you and I have done so many times with Kemp and whatnot, and Peyton. And yeah, it's not a non-sim element technically for a backboard to break, at some point, because, you look back in history, Jerome Lane, Shaquille O'Neal, Jordan broke the backboard. I believe it was in an exhibition and whatnot, and there's footage of that
in Germany.
It's a thing that's happened, and it would be cool if it came back.
I wonder if it's the case of the NBA just doesn't want to have it in the game, because at the end of the day they do have veto power over such things, and I do believe that backboard breaking was in some of the early 2000s NCAA games as well.
I mean, if somebody submits to me a glass shattering jam from a past college basketball game, you have a very high chance of being the number one play of the week in the NLSC top 10, because that's just super cool.
And if it's D Brown or Michael Jordan breaking the backboard, it's number one.
That might be, I might just keep putting it number one for like 5 to 10 weeks in a row.
No one's going to get sick of it. That's going to look very cool. So
right,
there you
exactly.
Go. Next up we have DM Allen 5. Create a stadium, custom shoes and be able to share them online, custom camera angle, and let you be able to mod files like PC. So, again, very familiar ground there. And I totally agree. I do think the future of modding can be or should be in-game like that, having those customization features. Again, it might come down to the NBA not being too keen to have you so readily rebrand their game. But those features are there. So if you can get the NBA on board with that, if that is an issue, then having that, and of course something simple like being able to share custom shoes, I think is something that should be there already. So yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, and a lot of people love the shoes, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like creating some of the classics and whatnot, like the old Shaq Reeboks, or Larry Johnson shoes and whatnot. Like a lot of people love that. In fact, for the NBA 2K19 retro roster mods, retro roster single season mods, Mick, I think it's Mick Achetti and whatnot is how you pronounce it. I'm not 100% sure, but he's done such an amazing job recreating so many different shoes from the past, and it really adds to the authenticity to those single season mods.
Next up we have Little Rascal Mike at MC_386 on Twitter. Creating coach would be nice. Editing team uniforms, logos, arena for just rosters alone would be nice too. Console keyboard support for faster console roster makers. Yeah, that's a great idea there. I mean, obviously, once again, another vote for editing uniforms, logos, etc. outside of the franchise modes. But being able to plug in the keyboard to the console and have that support there, just to make things a bit faster, and rather than having to navigate everything by controller with the on-screen keyboard, just little shortcuts like that, just quality of life improvements for the customization features is. No, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a great suggestion.
Now that would be niche.
Yes.
That, I think it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a great idea, but you are greatly in the minority there as far as that's actually the first time I've heard anybody mention that or request it in all of my years, playing basketball video games or talking about them.
Well, the PlayStation does have native support for keyboards, and I believe Xbox does as well, because I know I've plugged it in before to use for YouTube. So I think it's just a matter of being able to recognize the keyboard input that's already there for the consoles that they do support. So if they could do that. I mean, I know there's been times when I've been saving a roster and I wish I could just type this in instead of having to use the controller. So that might be a bit more popular, that one.
Yeah, I think for roster editing, for people who are hardcore into it, who like to build complete rosters and really get down with it and whatnot, I think that it could be incredibly useful. So I definitely agree. By the way, my brother would love that. My brother, Nick, would absolutely love to be able to, do those edits faster and whatnot. Also, congratulations, Little Rascal, for getting into this week's version of the NLSC top 10 plays of the week. So awesome stuff.
And finally, we have Mahmood, modern in the community, of course. Creative player absolutely needs attention and honestly a full overhaul. We've had the same character creator for a good 5 years now. 2K's done great on the graphics, but the outdated caps really stand out. 2 to 3 new haircuts for every release won't cut it. Can't even customize them. Yeah, I mean, this has always been the thing in video games for so many years, that once we got to a certain point with the in-game faces, when they were actual real faces, real models, that creative players just really stood out as created. They were very painfully not original players. And 2K has gotten better with some of the creative player faces in recent games, but they are showing their age. I would definitely agree. So really getting those face sculpting and the quality of those faces up to the point where they can be really mistaken for a real face. And look, people have done it, Derek. We talked about MJ Wizards and some of the great faces that he's made, the great Barclays and Rasheed Wallace and Reggie Miller that he's shared before, and others have done the same. Philly as well, shout out to Philly. But they're working with some limitations, which again makes their work even more impressive, but it'd be nice if the tools were even better.
What's funny is that WWE 2K, the newest game and whatnot for their wrestling series, has an amazing create a wrestler feature. I see the creations pop up all the time on Twitter. I don't own the game, but I see, people creating wrestlers that are not in the game. And it's unbelievable how close they can get to the real life counterpart. In fact, a lot of them, you'd be like, that's a real cyberface. That looks like them in the game. So 2K is already doing that for their WWE series. Why can't they bring that over to the 2K series, right? They're still creating human beings. So it's creating human beings in both games. So I completely agree with this creative player feature that they have currently being outdated, and them only making small updates each year that really don't change the experience much. One of the things that really hurts the experience this year is that you could go through this long, grueling process, hours trying to create a player to make it look like the real life counterpart and whatnot. And then in the edit player screen, you're like, all right, well, maybe this might be acceptable. And then you put him on the floor. The player loses all of his detail in his face when he's on the floor. Like, the quality on the floor doesn't match what it is in the edit player screen. So the players look poor on the floor. They don't have detail and whatnot, and they stick out like a sore thumb. So there's definitely a lot of improvement they can make with the creative player feature, and I think that they need to look at their WWE 2K game and try to bring that quality over to the NBA 2K series.
Absolutely, if they can share those resources and make use of that tech, so much the better. And you're absolutely right about those cores, those creator wrestlers. You look at these suggestions, and it's quite clear that as good as 2K can be out of the box, and we've said at launch, and we've said that 2K23 is a quality title across the board in so many respects, but people want to tinker, and they want to create new things in games. it's always been that way. That whether it's creating a custom team with you and all your friends, or updating the rosters with missing players, adding missing legends, retro rosters, whatever, people want to be able to tinker and expand the experience that's on offer beyond what is simply there out of the box. So yeah, we absolutely would love to see a lot of these ideas implemented in the future. Yeah,
one that nobody brings up that I think I think it would be a hit, a scoreboard creator. Yeah. How many scoreboard mods do we see come out every year for the PC? In fact, there's some of the mods that come out right away. And how cool would it be, to be able to customize a scoreboard and make it your own and be able to impact the presentation that way on console?
I'm just imagining having a complete sandbox of assets that you could change, so that you could have, like the broadcast, you could have NLSC TV or whatever. Obviously you would probably want to do, most people would want to do real broadcast networks. But yeah, being able to change the scoreboard, the score bug, the
oh my god! Well, like what you just said, it would be great advertising for content creators.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right. So let's say Flight is playing. I just brought him up because he was somebody that was really active and loud in the NBA Live community, and then years back, and then obviously he's been playing a lot of NBA 2K now and whatnot. Let's say Flight, who's a huge influencer now, is streaming. How cool would it be for him to be able to have his own Flight scoreboard?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, that would be absolutely awesome.
So there's so much that can still be done, and that's something we've talked about before in many aspects of the games, that as deep as 2K is, and that's one of its strengths and what we love about it so much, that it does cater to all these experiences, there's still a lot more you could do. And hopefully that is on there, as when we had Left Us on the show, we referred to their blue sky list, their dream list of things to do once it's possible. These are the kinds of things that I hope are on that list.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that can still be done, and that's kind of exciting, right? Because whether 2K does it or somebody else comes into the space and does it before them or whatnot, there's stuff to look forward to.
And I think whoever secures the likeness rights for Ginger Clay will also lock up this generation of basketball gaming.
Right. We have to connect again on that game, and let me use Ginger Clay to see if I can repeat that performance. I lost that game, but it was almost like Jordan, scoring 60 in the Garden.
The Ginger Clay challenge will be the 2K24. This is your leak. This is where you hear it first. But thank you to everybody who responded to this week's mailbag prompt. Once again, Derek, it's always fun to throw out that prompt, which you do a great job of every week with these creative questions. And I always look forward to talking about that question, giving our ideas on it, but especially hearing what the community has to say.
Yeah. Thank you to the community who responded to the question. Got a lot of great responses, and they were pretty immediate, actually, after I made, put out the tweet and whatnot. So as always, thanks for interacting with the show and supporting us.
We do love that passion and do greatly appreciate that support. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of the show. As always, we thank you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, nb-live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media. That's where you can get in touch with us, and of course, stay up to date with all of our content. To then, Derek, I'm going to throw it over to you to share those handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter, where I'm the most active, at D4384 and D43G. I am now on TikTok. Unbelievable. I got talked into it. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Roger. And you can find me on TikTok at D43. I'm also on YouTube, D43, and on the NLSC, D43.
I am not on TikTok because nobody needs to see me dance, but... Well, we'll see what the future holds. But in the meantime, I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. Our Instagram is NLSC Basketball. Our aforementioned YouTube channel is youtube.com/NBA Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nb-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.